Have you ever heard of the prophecies of Saint Vincent Ferrer? This 14th century prophet left warnings that, although written hundreds of years ago, today seem to touch the reality of the United States. But how can something so ancient resonate so much today? Could Donald Trump's recent victory in the 2024 elections be a sign that we live in prophesied times? Who knows? The words of Saint Vincent seem to emerge as echoes in the current world. He spoke of an era in which morality would be questioned, in which the fundamental values would be at stake, and in which leaders would arise who, for better or for worse, would divide and unify society in unpredictable ways. And today, while we see the controversies, the division and the disconcert, one cannot help but wonder if we are seeing their visions. What does God want to tell us in this context? We find ourselves at a point where we must choose between two paths, one that leads to peace and another that seems inevitably inclined to chaos. Like St. Vincent Ferrer, we observe the signs of the times. Is God sending us signs? ¿Será que estas turbulencias son un llamado a la reflexión y a la acción? La pregunta es incómoda, lo sé. Pero esa misma incomodidad es la que, quizá, necesitamos para ver lo que se nos escapa entre las sombras. San Vicente Ferrer nació el 23 de enero de 1350 en Valencia, España, in the bosom of a deeply devout family. From his early years, Vicente showed a remarkable spiritual inclination. At the age of 8, he was already studying history and literature, and at the age of 14, his interest in religion and philosophy was evident. His love for knowledge and his strong spiritual inclination made him a young man different from those of his time, something that his parents noticed immediately. When Vicente was 18 years old, he felt such a powerful spiritual calling that he decided to join the Order of the Dominicans, also known as the Order of Preachers. This decision was not easy, as his family expected him to continue a career in the secular priesthood. However, Vicente remained firm in his conviction, making it clear that his mission was to preach and fully dedicate himself to religious life. His entry into the Dominicans marked the beginning of a life of service and total dedication to God and the Church. During his time of formation in the order, San Vicente stood out in his studies of philosophy, theology, and the sacred scriptures. His intelligence and dedication allowed him to deepen his religious knowledge, so much so that he even wrote a treatise on logic. Over time, he became a teacher in sacred theology and a professor of philosophy in the Dominican order, what consolidated him as a respected academic and theologian in his time. His understanding of the scriptures and his ability to transmit his faith made him an example for his companions and a source of inspiration for those around him. As St. Vincent advanced in his religious life, he began to develop a passion for the preaching that would become his characteristic seal. Su estilo apocalíptico y su insistencia en la conversión. They made him win the title of Angel of the Apocalypse. St. Vincent traveled Europe with an unyielding fervor, preaching about the importance of repentance and the approach to God. His ability to convey complex messages in a simple way made him a great hero. He touched the hearts of thousands, and his dedication to this mission made him one of the most influential preachers of his time. For almost 2 decades, St. Vincent Ferrer undertook a series of missionary trips throughout Europe, bringing the message of the gospel to different regions. He toured England, Scotland, Ireland, France, Switzerland, Italy, and several areas of Spain such as Aragon and Castile. His fame as a preacher did not take long to spread everywhere. His eloquence and spiritual authority were such that, regardless of cultural or linguistic barriers, he managed to connect with people, leading many to conversion and strengthening of their faith. His mission was clear: to prepare humanity for the final judgment, and in this effort he left no place unvisited. The impact of St. Vincent Ferrer was not limited to his facet as a preacher. He was recognized in prestigious academic institutions, such as Barcelona and the University of Lerida, where he was awarded the honorary title of Doctor in Theology. This academic and ecclesiastical recognition gave him a position of influence in the church and in society, and his authority was recognized not only by the people, but also by the academic and religious elites of his time. His knowledge and his dedication to the Christian truth made him a respected and consulted figure by leaders of the time. In 1414, San Vicente was invited to participate in a crucial conference in Tortosa, Spain. At this event, he was given the responsibility to preach the gospel, and in his mission he accomplished something impressive: the conversion of many Jews to Christianity, including rabbis and figures of authority in the Jewish community. His eloquence and persuasion led a large number of people to embrace the Christian faith, transforming not only individuals but entire communities. It is estimated that throughout his life, St. Vincent Ferrer helped to convert thousands of people, being responsible for great movements of conversion that changed the spiritual history of many regions. Saint Vincent Ferrer died on April 5, 1419 in Vannes, Brittany, at the age of 69. His life and legacy were so significant that years later, in 1455, Pope Pius II canonized him, officially declaring his holiness and importance to the Church. Every year on April 5th, the Catholic Church honors his memory, recording this man of unbreakable faith, of deep devotion, and a vision that inspired generations. San Vicente Ferrer left a legacy as a preacher and as a true angel of the apocalypse, a title that continues to evoke his fervor for the truth and his call to conversion. But San Vicente Ferrer, not only did he preach about the end of times and the need for conversion, his life was marked by numerous miracles that made his message resonate even deeper. These inexplicable events reinforced his spiritual authority, confirming for many of his followers that he was a true messenger of God. One of the most amazing miracles of Saint Vincent Ferrer was the resurrection of people given by the dead. There are accounts that speak of at least 28 resurrections attributed to his intercession. One of the most well-known cases occurred in the town of Vannes, France. It is said that a young woman had died of a serious illness, and the family, desperate, asked Saint Vincent to intercede. After a deep prayer, Saint Vincent touched the young woman, and she came back to life before the astonishment of all those present. Este milagro es real. It is one of the many that cemented the faith of his followers in his divine mission. In another account, it is said that a man from the city of Lleida, Spain, was resurrected during one of his preachings. The crowd, impressed, not only witnessed the resurrection of this man, sino que muchos comenzaron a lourar y a pedir perdón por sus pecados. Estos milagros de resurrección se interpretaban como signos de la vida eterna y una advertencia de que todos enfrentarían el juicio final. San Vicente también era conocido por su don de sanar enfermedades. Throughout his missions, people took him to his patients, believing that a simple blessing from him could bring relief. Among the most well-known healing miracles, the case of a man who suffered from leprosy in Valencia, his hometown, is mentioned. Saint Vincent prayed for him, and the man was healed instantly, something that was seen as a sign of God's mercy and a call to conversion. Another relevant case was that of a paralytic girl in Toulouse, France. The little girl could not walk, and her family, upon learning of the arrival of Saint Vincent to the city, took her to him. After a short prayer, it is said that Saint Vincent raised her and that, to everyone's surprise, the girl began to walk. These healings served as a reminder of God's power, and in many cases, those who witnessed these events decided to change their lives and live in faith. Miracles are also attributed to her, related to the protection of communities against natural disasters. For more UN videos, visit www.un.org. Morella, in Spain, a powerful storm broke out, threatening to destroy crops and homes. The people of the city, alarmed, went to San Vicente, who prayed and asked God to calm the storm. The rain ceased almost immediately, and the people were saved. This event was interpreted as a sign of divine protection and a sign of divine protection, and the special mission of Saint Vincent to intercede for the people of God. On another occasion, in the city of Arigela, Saint Vincent managed to stop a strong earthquake with his prayers. This miracle, which occurred while Saint Vincent preached about the importance of faith in difficult times, reinforced the respect of the people towards him and his message, because they saw in his actions a sign that God was with him. During times of famine and crisis, Saint Vincent was also known for performing miracles of food multiplication. On one occasion, while preaching in the region of Brittany, in France, Saint Vincent and his followers faced a situation of food shortage. They only had a small amount of bread and wine, insufficient for all present. Saint Vincent prayed and blessed the food, and miraculously the food multiplied, reaching for all who were present. This miracle was seen as a symbol of God's providence and a reminder that, even in times of need, God provides for those who trust in him. San Vicente is also remembered for its ability to free people possessed by evil spirits. In many cities it passed through, people would bring relatives or acquaintances who suffered from possession, and with fervent prayers, San Vicente was able to free them. One of the most well-known cases occurred in Salamanca, where a young man suffered from violent episodes and convulsions attributed to a demonic possession. Saint Vincent prayed for him, and the young man immediately regained his peace. This act was considered a proof of God's power and of Saint Vincent's special gift to face evil. Saint Vincent carried with him a small bell, known today as the Bell of Conversion. According to the Chronicles, it was the Bell of Salvation. Every time Saint Vincent rang this bell, people felt a deep impulse to approach and listen to his message. In the city of Burgos, for example, it is reported that when the bell rang, people from all over, even those who did not want to hear it, felt the need to approach. This bell became a symbol of his evangelizing mission, and the fact that his sound had such a powerful effect on people was considered a miracle in itself, a divine call to conversion. Finally, St. Vincent Ferrer made numerous prophecies about the future, many of which were fulfilled. Among his best-known predictions is the one he made about the death of his friend and confessor, Pope Benedict XIII, who died as he had anticipated. He also prophesied important social changes in the communities he visited, and even the date of his own death, which occurred on April 5, 1419, as he had announced. For his followers, these fulfilled prophecies were a proof that his message was truly divine and that he had a special vision about the coming times. For him, life was like being in a house on fire. Each one of us has the duty to rescue the most important thing before it is too late. Imagine being in the middle of a fire, with only a few seconds to decide what to save. That, said St. Vincent, was the call of God to humanity. We cannot stay comfortably looking at how the days and years go by, waiting for everything to be fine when the time comes to face eternity. His apocalyptic style, strong and sometimes even uncomfortable, it had a clear purpose: to awaken people from their spiritual indifference and lead them to a sincere conversion. He warned us that we cannot live as if life were eternal here on earth. It is a preparation, an opportunity to choose and get closer to what is truly important. And in that urgency, in that intensity, San Vicente Ferrer becomes a figure that challenges our own comfort. He invites us to reflect. ¿Estamos realmente preparados para el día en que se nos pida rendir cuentas? O, como tantos, hemos dejado que nuestras prioridades se confunden y nuestros corazones se adormezcan? Por eso, las profecías de San Vicente Ferrer sobre divisiones y conflictos internos cobran un nuevo significado cuando las observamos a través del prisma de la política actual en Estados Unidos. Trump. A division that would lead to deep conflicts, tensions that could not be ignored, and that would mark an intense struggle for the soul of society. Trump's figure, over the years, has been a spark in this polarization fire. For his followers, he represents a strong voice, someone who is not afraid to face the system and defend the interests of the Americans. Embargo. In this case, Trump represents both. On the one hand, his rhetoric and nationalist policies can strengthen those who seek to protect their traditional values and the so-called American dream. But on the other hand, these same actions can deepen the cracks in a nation that increasingly feels more divided on issues of morality, rights, and visions of the future. Trump's election may not be just a political triumph, but a revelation of how fragile the social and moral unity of the country has become. With his focus on the economy and protectionism, he will be able to create a new future. Trump has promised to revitalize the American industry, secure jobs for the middle class, and promote local investment. In a world where conflicts and uncertainty are on the rise, these issues can be a breath of fresh air for those who feel that progress and globalization have put local interests aside. In a way, this policy of protecting our own reminds us of St. Vincent's call to take care of our souls and of the most valuable things before facing a crisis. St. Vincent's teachings urge us to save the essential in times of trial. And Trump, in his own way, seeks to preserve values and the internal economy as a strength that could resist external crises. In addition, in a context of global insecurity, the idea of strengthening the army and national defense could be seen as an answer to an era of conflicts. San Vicente mentioned that in the end times something that the followers of San Vicente could recognize as part of their warnings. However, internal divisions are not the only challenge. Trump's presidency not only confronts his supporters against his opponents, it also brings the risk of tensions and conflicts with other countries. Protectionist policies and decisions that challenge traditional agreements could result in difficult economic consequences to predict, and even in diplomatic or military conflicts. While St. Vincent spoke of the importance of strength, he also warned against the dangers of arrogance and unbridled conflict, especially when it comes to alliances and power relations. We are in a period where diplomacy and alliances are key, and every false move could cause domino effects all over the world. Another issue that generates controversy is the ethics and moral division in society. Trump represents, for some, a protection of conservative values. For others, it is a threat to democracy. Today, they can resonate with the warnings of the prophet, where the conflict is not only political, but also ethical and spiritual. The impact of Trump's presidency goes beyond the borders of the United States. His policies influence global trade, military alliances, and migratory issues, touching lives all over the planet. International relations become complex at a time when alliances are fragile and economies depend on each other more than ever. And this is where we can see one of the warnings of St. Vincent Ferrer about the role of alliances and power in the end times. The movements of a single leader can trigger profound changes. In a little equilibrium, the Potter Global Padre Este Administration de Trump Sir el inicio de una era en la que las alianzas se rompen y se reconstruyen creando nuevas tensiones que podrían llevar a conflictos mayores. And are we witnessing a restructuring of the world order that points to a prophesied end? For many, Trump's leadership on security and immigration issues may seem like a necessary barrier, but it could also be interpreted as a signal of the times in which nations close and distance each other, a reflection of distrust and fear. In short, when we consider the prophecies of St. Vincent Ferrer, the current context seems to be full of signs and warnings. We have to reflect on the call that God makes to us through these turbulent times. Seremos capaces de ver más allá de nuestras diferencias y encontrar una manera de vivir en paz. Or will these divisions lead us to a point of no return? The answer depends on each one of us, and on how, in the midst of this chaos, we decide to act in love, in faith, and with the intention of being light in times of darkness. But something very important, and that few know, is that St. Vincent Ferrer predicted the appearance of the Antichrist, a figure that, according to him, would come to bring a deep darkness on the faith and spirit of people. This vision included a warning about the obsession of humanity for power and wealth, vices that could distance us from God. He said that, in recent times, love for the material would surpass love for the spiritual, and that this distortion of values would make many blind before the arrival of evil. Don't we see today that obsession for power in many leaders and figures of influence who seem to be more interested in their own benefit than in the well-being of their peoples? This thirst for power that St. Vincent associated with the advent of the Antichrist does not necessarily refer to a particular person, but to a global attitude that darkens spirituality and the connection with God. In today's world, some see extreme materialism and the unceasing search for political power as a possible manifestation of this prophecy. When the material becomes the priority and the power a purpose in itself, faith begins to lose its place and the spirit is extinguished. St. Vincent warned that this spiritual darkening would prepare the ground for the emergence of leaders and systems. Subjugate. Humanidad. Proposito. Otra de las advertencias de San Vicente Ferrer sobre a la persecución religiosa que aumentaría en los últimos tiempos. In his sermons, he predicted that Christians would face difficult times, in which defending their faith would become a challenge. In the current context, some interpret this warning as a signal in the midst of political and social debates about religious freedom in the United States and other parts of the world. The re-election of Donald Trump, for example, generates intense debates about the defense of Christian values in the public sphere. Some see in his leadership an attempt to protect these values, while others perceive a polarization that could lead to conflicts with other beliefs and values. St. Vincent predicted that in these times the Christian faith would be questioned, and its defenders faced with a society increasingly distant from spirituality. This struggle is not only a political issue, but a spiritual battle in which the right to live and practice faith is faced with ideologies and systems that seek to impose their own visions of good and evil. The freedom to express and practice faith has become an increasingly delicate issue. For some, this situation is already a reflection of the persecution predicted by St. Vincent. Although perhaps it does not always manifest in open violence, persecution can adopt more subtle forms. Limitations on the expression of traditional values is firmly established despite the evidence, and that it is in times of adversity when we must seek the strength in God. St. Vincent Ferrer also prophesied about the proliferation of false prophets, especially in times of political and social crisis. For him, the last times would be marked by confusion and deception. One era in which charismatic and powerful leaders would attract crowds, but their teachings and actions would be far from the divine truth. This phenomenon, said St. Vincent, would be a test for the people of God, for many would be tempted to follow these leaders, deviating from the true spiritual path. At present, we see a multiplication of voices and leaders that offer solutions and promises in times of uncertainty. In the midst of political, social, and economic crises, some people seek quick answers, and often these leaders emerge with attractive speeches, but full of ambiguity and, at times, deception. St. Vincent warns us about this time of confusion, reminding us that not all those who present themselves as guides or prophets bring a true message. The proliferation of leaders who take advantage of fear and despair is a sign of the times, a moment that requires discernment and faith so as not to be led by appearances. For St. Vincent, these false prophets would not only be religious figures, but also people of influence in the political and social sphere, capable of distorting the truth for their own ends. Today, in a world of constant information and access to multiple ideologies, it is easier than ever to be deceived or confused. The words of St. Vincent call us to be alert, not to put our faith in empty promises, nor in those who seek to divert people from God under the guise of quick or easy solutions. In the United States, the social and political division has become especially evident in events such as the riots in the Capitol on January 6, 2021, when thousands of protesters erupted in an attempt to reverse the result of the elections. Episodio que mostró la intensidad de la polarización y la disposición de algunos a usar creencias. Durante la administración de Trump se implementaron políticas de carácter religioso, as the expansion of exceptions for employers who opposed the mandate of contraceptives of the Affordable Care Act for religious reasons, which generated tensions between defenders of reproductive health rights and conservative Christian communities. Another notable case was that of Jack Phillips, the owner of a bakery in Colorado, who in his faith se negó a crear un pastel de boda para una pareja del mismo sexo, desencadenando una disputa legal. Intense clashes and protests broke out throughout the country. This legal change polarized citizens even more and led to new conflicts between states, where some promoted laws to ban abortion almost completely, while others sought to protect this right locally. As for censorship on social media, during the 2020 elections and subsequent events, the U.S. Department of Justice Las Principales Plataformas como they took the decision to restrict accounts and publications that spread conspiracy theories, including the account of Donald Trump himself. Although these decisions were justified for security reasons, they generated a lot of controversy. A debate on freedom of expression and censorship, especially in conservative Christian sectors that felt that their voices were deliberately silenced. This feeling intensified when, in 2021, the conservative news channel Newsmax was removed from several television platforms, which fueled the perception of an ideological persecution. In the future, if this trend continues, it is feared that restrictions may be extended to churches or religious entities, limiting the possibility of publicly expressing traditional postures on issues, such as marriage and sexuality. Finally, the growing popularity of figures like QAnon, a conspiracy movement that maintains unfounded beliefs on a secret network of powerful people who govern the world, shows how, in times of social and political crisis, charismatic leaders and deceitful narratives pueden ganar traición durante el apoyo de QAnon, miles de estado estadounidenses participaron en protestas y difundieron mensajes en redes sociales promoviendo esta teoría y algunas personas llegaron a actuar basadas en estas creencias. Como ocurrió en el caso de un hombre armado que ingresó en una pizzeria de Washington, D.C. en 2016. You convinced that there was a network of trafficking of minors. The spread of these theories and the rise of false prophets in times of crisis reflect the warning of St. Vincent about the confusion and deception that could proliferate in recent times. With the re-election of Donald Trump in 2024, it is likely that the United States will face more internal conflicts and tensions. Trump could impose stricter laws against abortion, which could cause major confrontations with states that want to protect this right. This could also lead to lawsuits between states and the federal government. Social media could also be affected, as Trump could press to limit content that is not aligned with a conservative vision, which could create more conflict with those who support a more progressive and diverse society. In terms of immigration, it is likely that Trump seeks to strengthen the border and harden deportations, which could cause protests in cities with large immigrant communities. In addition, there could be clashes with Latin American countries over the strongest migratory policies. At a global level, Trump could increase tensions with countries like China and Iran, applying economic sanctions and more aggressive defense measures, which would increase the risk of international conflicts. Finally, confidence in institutions could continue to weaken. For many of Trump's followers, his re-election represents a victory against what they see as a progressive threat, while their opponents could see this as another reason to distrust the political system. This could cause more people to fall into conspiracy theories and support extremist groups, increasing the risk of violence and disturbances in the country. In conclusion, dear brothers, in times like these, the message of St. Vincent Ferrer reminds us that we must be prepared in body and soul. St. Vincent taught that our priority must be to strengthen faith, devoting time to prayer, reading the Bible, and getting closer to God every day. It is also important to take care of ourselves physically, to have good habits, order in our lives, and discipline to be ready for any challenge. St. Vincent encouraged us to live according to Christian virtues, such as love, patience, and strength. Today, more than ever, we need to practice generosity, help others, and live with humility. Instead of letting ourselves be carried away by fear or anger, he invited us to respond with calm and compassion. Even if the situation is difficult, we must trust in God and that He is always by our side, giving us the strength to move forward. St. Vincent also left us words of encouragement. He told us that, despite the trials, we must remain firm in faith, trusting that God has a purpose in everything. It is in these moments that we need to seek God with sincerity, to support each other, and to remember that, even if there are many difficulties, God will always be with us. Finally, St. Vincent reminds us that we can be a light for others. Through our faith and love, we can bring hope to those around us. May these times not take away our peace, but bring us closer to God and help us live according to His word, always trusting in His guidance. I'm inspired or has given you something to reflect on. I invite you to share it so that this message reaches more people and together we can sow hope in difficult times. We would love to know your opinion, so do not hesitate to leave your comment. Let's read each of them, and it helps us to continue creating content that unites us in faith. And remember that in a few seconds, 2 recommended videos that may interest you will appear on the screen. May God bless you and always protect you.